Imagine your brain has been wired the wrong way your whole life and is keeping you poor. Not because you were born that way, but because society has trained you to think that way. In this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how to rewire your brain to make millions. And I get it, you're probably thinking, oh great, another guru in a supercar trying to sell me a course. But I've already made an obscene amount of money, and this rewiring is exactly how I went from having $50 to my name to making over $100 million and becoming a shark on Shark Tank. Give me 12 minutes and I'll show you how to rewire your brain to print millions. Look, your brain works full-time to keep you in line with who you believe that you are. And the only way to hack this is to adopt the behavior of someone whose actions would be unreasonable for them not to be successful. And the first way that we do that is by starting your day with violent offense. My life changed when I realized that you don't get what it is that you want in life. You get what it is you are and the actions that it is that you take. Because when you run a business, it feels like the natural default state is to play defense. You wake up in the morning and you have emails sitting inside your inbox, which are simply requests from other people of your time. And if you wake up and you let the day just happen to you, then you never get anything done. For me, when I started my business, I made 150 cold calls every single morning. I would wake up at 4 a.m., I would go for a run in the cold, and then I would come back, and regardless of what other tasks that I had to do in my business, I would always make 150 cold calls no matter what before I went to sleep at night. So you must build a ritual within your day, something that you do that even when you wake up and you do not feel like doing that hard thing and you don't feel like getting after it, there is a certain song that you listen to. There is a workout. There is some breathing exercise. There's you jump down and you do 50 push-ups. Whatever it is, you need to game yourself to get into peak state, to take that violent offense every single day. If you do this for 6 months, I can guarantee you it will materially change your business and your life. Which brings us to step number 2. Action writes the answers that thinking can't find. The biggest sin that I see people commit early on in their business, and even as they keep on growing their business, is that they overthink everything. They sit down and they think that they need to have an absolutely perfect plan executed right now, and because of that, they just overthink their way out of ever taking the action. And the reality of it is that an imperfect plan executed today is far better than a perfect plan that never gets executed or gets executed in a month's time. Speed really is a superpower. And whenever you find yourself overthinking a situation, the framework that I like to use is once I have 70 to 80% of the information that I need to make the decision, I just make it and I move on. And by doing these actions, you actually change the way that your brain is wired. If you pick a hard task and you keep on doing it, then it fires synapses in your brain and it forms new neural pathways that make it easy for those same neurons to fire. So it's not just about taking action and just doing these things. This actually rewires your brain to do those hard things every single day. And by focusing on those tasks and not questioning them and not thinking about them, these are the actions that literally change the way that your brain is wired. Which brings us to step number 3. Everything is built twice. First in the mind and then out in the world. If you look at any successful person in any field, regardless of whatever it is that they do, they always have a very clear vision of what success looks like to them. If you look at the biggest champions in the world, recently I saw Ilia Topuria, and this guy had so much courage that before moving up a weight class and fighting to get this new belt, he actually organized a photo shoot with both of the belts with his family and already rehearsed that he had won the second belt. And for a lot of people on the outside, they look at that as being very cocky, right? And they look at that, oh, this person's just being a showman, they're just going on and doing these things. But what he says is that he had already won the fight in his training camp. Success leaves clues. If you look at any of the greatest champions in the world, they are constantly rehearsing what it feels like to win. That is what makes things real. And then you can get excited about that. You can build a vision board off the back of that dream life and think about, this is what it looks like.
But knowing this will mean nothing unless you leverage it using this next point, because most people are walking around with a poor person's operating system. And it's not because they're dumb, it's because their brain has been wired this way since birth. Which brings us to point number 4.
When you lack dollars, show up with fire. The less money that you have, the more charisma and the more energy that it is that you need to bring to the table. Because one of the biggest lies that there are in the business community is that it takes money to make money. This is the biggest load of shit I've ever heard, because it does not take money to make money. No, it takes courage to make money. And I have got the receipts of it. I started with nothing more than $50, right? I literally had no money to even pay rent. But the thing that I did have was courage. And I used that courage to call on 150 businesses every day and got told to off and to go away and to go and die and all of these really bad things that people told me all day long. But you know what? After making 150 cold calls every single day for 3 days, I landed my first client. And you need to be very, very careful about what you allow people to tell you and what you believe is true, because your thoughts literally change your perception of reality. Which brings us to step number 5. Effort compounds faster than talent. In life, the only thing that you can control is the amount of effort that you put into things. And the only person that's gonna keep you accountable for that is yourself. And the way to test this for yourself is when you go to bed every night, the pillow never lies. You ask yourself, did I leave everything else out on the field, or did I have more in the tank? And that's exactly why I previously mentioned that claiming to have a lack of resources will stagnate you, because you're surrendering control to something that is outside of your power, when the number one thing that you can control is your effort. Which brings us to step number 6. Complacency is a death sentence. Every day when you wake up, you need to work like there is somebody else out there that is smarter than you, that has better resources than you, that is trying to take it all away from you, because they literally are. Think about it with your team, that there is always someone out there that's trying to recruit them. Think about it with your customers. There is always somebody that is trying to provide more value at a cheaper price with a better product, and they are literally trying to steal your customers. Heck, even think about it within your own personal relationships. You can see it a lot of the times in people's relationships when they start to die, is when one partner becomes complacent, right? They let themselves get out of shape. They stop treating that person like they have any other options. And then there is someone else out there that is gonna be more appreciative of whoever your partner is, and they're gonna be willing to treat them like it's absolutely day one. And that goes for everything in life and in business. The moment that you start to take things for granted is the moment that you start losing, which brings us to step number 7. Control your mind or be controlled. Your mind is a weapon, but only if you sharpen it. I get asked all the time, Sabri, do you have any mentors? Sabri, will you be my mentor? Look, all of my mentors are dead. I grew up in a small beach town, raised by a single parent mother. I had no positive male role models around me. There was no one that I could even look to in my town and be like, hey, I wish I could achieve what it is that they have achieved, or they seem like a great role model. No, no, no. So instead, what I did is I got my role models from people that were no longer alive. I read books, I watched interviews from the greatest people, and I let them be my mentors through their words and through their work. So if I was looking at my current reality and I was letting that shape what it is that I wanted to build in my life, I would have never achieved any of the things that I've achieved. But instead, I literally rewired my brain by looking at what the most successful people in the world do every day. What does their upbringing look like? What were the daily actions and sacrifices that they did every day? And that became my normal. But this wasn't something that I just left to chance or that I would do once a month or once a quarter. This was every single day in controlling my environment and controlling my mind.
But none of these matter unless you apply these last 3 tactics in rewiring your brain to become rich. Because your brain's job is not to make you rich, it's to keep you safe. And safe equals familiar. That's why rewiring your brain is only possible once you understand point number 8.
The hungriest learner wins the market. You must be always trying to outlearn the competition, because curiosity plus hunger is a lethal combination. And this is something something that is constantly echoed to me by all my billionaire friends. Because your brain is always filtering out the reality that you show to it. And that is largely determined by what you spend your time learning and thinking about. And when you can't see opportunities, it's not because those opportunities aren't there. It's just your brain isn't wired in a way to recognize them. So whatever the chosen field that it is that you're in, make the decision to be a lifelong learner, which brings us to step number 9. Negotiate everything. It's not just about, negotiating how much money that you're making or certain terms in a deal. No. It goes much deeper than that, because what it signals to your brain is that you are not going to tolerate the first version of reality that the world serves up to you, and that you are constantly going to be looking at every single situation and thinking, how can I negotiate this situation to get to an even more favorable outcome? And if you just ingrain this practice into yourself and in everybody else around you, you will get ahead of 99% of people. Which brings us to step number 10. You are the most underpriced stock in the world. Everybody looks at something that is outside of themselves that's going to change the reality of their life. A certain opportunity, a new job, a new business venture, a new deal that's going to come into place. It's just going to change your world, right? These are all things that, again, are outside of your power. They look at Bitcoin or some kind of outside moon coin or something that they can invest in that isn't themselves, rather than looking at themselves as an individual and thinking, okay, this is the vehicle that I am going to be driving through for the rest of my life. Am I investing in myself as the most underpriced stock that I know that I invest now that it's going to go up 1,000% in the future? And the reality of it is that most people aren't. Constantly be working on yourself. This is the way that you get ahead. And by constantly working on all of these little areas of your life, starting with the big hatchet work and then working down to the scalpel work, this is how you incrementally rewire your brain to become successful. Because remember, you have to go through it to get to it. And this is exactly what it looks like in going through it step by step to get to the outcome that it is you're shooting for. If you liked this video, then you are going to absolutely love this one on how to brainwash yourself to become successful. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.